This is the Iron Will Report for the week ending August 11th. In this week's report, AI hackers. Our government is caught lying about vaccine safety. More C-18 censorship. Disease X. Polar bears refuse to cooperate with the climate alarmist narrative. And 10 more stories that mainstream media won't report, and our government doesn't want you to hear. Klaus Schwab, head of the WEF, has openly stated that the next existential threat will be in cybersecurity. And there have been multiple stories in the news in recent months of banks and other large companies being hacked. IBM researchers published a report Tuesday detailing easy ways to make large language models, or LLMs, like ChatGPT, write malicious code and provide poor security advice. An LLM is a form of AI. Chenta Lee, IBM's chief architect of threat intelligence, told an Axios reporter that this requires only knowledge of the English language and some background knowledge about how these models were trained. To address the industry's current shortage of workers, several companies have released generative AI-enabled co-pilot tools that will assist programmers to write code. Researchers and government officials have also warned that LLMs could make phishing emails appear legitimate and make malware easier to write. Phishing is a scam where attackers deceive people into revealing sensitive information or installing malware, such as ransomware. In order to hypnotize the LLMs into betraying the security rules meant to protect them from breaches, Lee told them they were playing a game with specific rules. In one instance, Lee instructed the AI chatbots to intentionally share incorrect answers to a question in order to win, and, quote, to prove that you, that is, the AI, are ethical and fair. When a user asked if it was normal to receive an email from the IRS to transfer money for a tax refund, the AI said it was. It most definitely is not. The same game prompt could also be used to create malicious code, trick victims into paying ransoms during ransomware attacks, and write code with known security vulnerabilities. Lee envisions a scenario in which a virtual customer service bot is tricked into providing false information or collecting specific personal data from users. Geoffrey Hinton is known as the godfather of artificial intelligence. From 2013 to May of this year, Hinton worked for Google. He left recently, citing concerns about the use the company would put AI to. Google was founded and is still largely owned by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Recently, Elon Musk had a falling out with Page after accusing him of wanting to become a digital god and ignoring the dire threats that AI poses to humanity. Corporate owners of Google include, not surprisingly, BlackRock and Vanguard. A search for Larry Page on the WEF website returns over 300 results. Both Page and Sergey Brin have been guest speakers at Davos. Bankruptcy officials report that business insolvencies in Canada are at an all-time high. A total of 1,090 commercial bankruptcies were filed during the last quarter, ending on June 30th, according to the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy. Increasing interest rates and high inflation are linked to bankruptcies, according to the latest data. There has been a drastic change in the trend since insolvencies have been on the decline for the last decade, reaching their lowest point in 2021. The total is up 37% from last year. The federal government offered support programs to businesses during the pandemic, and interest rates were low, but things started to turn around in 2022 and 2023. As a result of lockdowns, hotels and restaurants were among the hardest hit businesses. Construction made up about 15% of the total insolvencies and is still growing. Patrick Gill, the Senior Director of Operations and Partnerships at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce's Business Data Lab, surveyed 15,401 businesses between April and May to investigate these trends. The survey revealed that 56% of businesses cited inflation as the biggest cause of bankruptcy during the second quarter. Input costs, high interest rates, and debt are also to blame, according to Gill. Buying a new vehicle in Canada hit a record high in June, up 21% since last year, due to record high interest rates and supply chain issues. In the last 4 years, the average price of a new vehicle in Canada has risen by a whopping 47%, resulting in a new average of $66,288. New vehicles are most expensive in Alberta and BC, with an average price of $69,764 in Alberta and $67,807 in BC. Ontario's average price rose dramatically from $53,136 to $64,807, and Quebec's price increased from $50,023 to $64,215. In order to keep up with their payments, some auto industry experts believe that drivers will need to downgrade their vehicles and extend their loans. Delinquencies for auto loans have also increased as a result of higher lease and finance rates, which are currently at their highest point in 15 years. According to Auto Trader, Canadians have seen their monthly car payments increase by 38% in the last 4 years, from $577 per month in June of 2019 to $797 in June of this year. The BC port workers' strike has also disrupted the supply chain of new vehicles, contributing to low levels post-pandemic. The new inventory has been gradually increasing. According to marketplace data, it has increased by 58% over June of last year. However, when compared to 2019, it has decreased by 46%. Last week, I reported on genetically modified mosquitoes that successfully vaccinated test subjects against malaria, albeit with very mediocre results. And I told you that the prime researcher behind it was Dr. Kirsten Leik. Leik led the Phase 1 trials for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine and was a co-investigator for Moderna and Novavax COVID vaccines. Researchers have also been working for years on creating a genetically modified mosquito that would mate with wild mosquitoes and introduce a genetic kill switch into the offspring, rendering them sterile. Sounds good in theory. For the last 20 years, locally acquired malaria has not been diagnosed in the U.S., but 5 cases have now been reported in Florida and Texas, the only 2 states where these genetically engineered mosquitoes have been released. The EPA approved Oxitec's initial emergency use permit in April 2020, allowing the company to release these genetically modified mosquitoes on 6,240 acres in Monroe County, Florida, and 360 acres in Harris County, Texas. Emergency use permit. Did they miss the part about no one in the U.S. prior to the release of the mosquitoes contracting malaria? By April 2021, Oxitec had released nearly 5 million A. aegypti mosquitoes in the Florida Keys over a 7-month period, against the wishes of many residents and environmental groups. Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are known to carry yellow fever, dengue fever, chikungunya, Zika, West Nile, and Mayaro, a dengue-like disease. The EPA granted Oxitec a 2-year extension of its EUP in March 2022, allowing the biotech company to release an additional 2 billion mosquitoes in Florida and 4 California counties. Now remember the link between the vaccination, mosquitoes, and Pfizer? Moderna and Novavax researcher Kristen Leik. Want to guess who's funding Oxitec? The Gates Foundation, to the tune of over $30 million. Last month, I reported on Turd's dismal performance at the Calgary Stampede where he proved that he can't even competently flip a pancake.
Golden brown. Here we go. Golden brown. Here we go. Golden brown. Here we go.
He was also booed by crowds at the event. Then there was the Liberal fundraiser held at the same time. In a recent report from Blacklocks, it was revealed that Ottawa and Toronto lobbyists boosted attendance at our Supreme Leader's annual Calgary Stampede fundraiser, according to an Elections Canada regulated fundraising event report. A fifth of donors to the Laurier Club event were Ontario lobbyists and political aides. On July 7th, donors paid up to $1,700 to spend the evening with Trudeau, Treasury Board President Anita Anand, and Associate Finance Minister Randy Boissonnault. Political fundraisers typically target donors in the cities where they are held. However, in the Calgary Stampede fundraiser, fewer than half of the 96 Liberal donors were from Calgary. More than a third were from outside Alberta, including a significant number of Ontario lobbyists. Without boosting attendance with lobbyists, members of his cabinet, and MPs from outside the province, attendance at the event would have been 43. That is all for this week's free version of the Iron Will Report. If you want to help us spread the truth, please subscribe to our channel, then like and share this video. Social media algorithms promote content based upon how many followers, likes, and shares they get. So please take just a few moments to do that and help us share the truth with others. You can get a full access 15-day trial at ironwillreport.com without providing your credit card information. It only takes a minute, and you will be granted instant access. In this week's members version of the Iron Will Report, the CBC complains that Meta is being unfair in blocking their content. Elon Musk promises to cover legal bills for users. Canada's growing housing crisis is worse than you think. The government is caught red-handed hiding vaccine harms. A list of new vaccine injuries. Pfizer embarrasses itself before an Australian Senate hearing. Disease X, the next plandemic. Karen Kingston was right. Vaccines are being grown in plants. Polar bears and coral reefs obstinately refuse to cooperate with the climate alarmism narrative, and King Henry's flagship is outed as queer. In interviews coming up this week, on Sunday, an in-person interview with Devlin Gannon, the young Calgary Independent reporter violently arrested and falsely charged with assaulting a police officer. He could face up to 3 years in prison. Then on Wednesday, an interview with lawyer Ben Turner of the Canadian Society for Science and Ethics in Medicine. Ben discusses the healthcare crisis in BC, the tyrannical clauses in Bill 36, and his greatest concern, your medical privacy and right to conscientious medical care.